Okay, so what if I told you that you could learn any new skill you wanted? I'm talking speaking a language, playing an instrument, coding, whatever, in less than 24 hours of actual practice time. I know, it sounds completely impossible, right? But it all comes down to a specific blueprint that totally flips how you approach learning. It feels like a superpower, but really, it's a system. And today we're going to break that system down, step by step. First things first, we've got to bust a huge myth. You've all heard the 10,000-hour rule, right? The idea that it takes this insane amount of time to become an expert. But here's the thing. We're not trying to become a chess grandmaster or a concert violinist. We're just trying to get good. And the amazing news is, getting good at something takes a radically, wildly different amount of time if you have the right strategy.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by knocking down that 10,000-hour myth once and for all. Then we'll dive into the real mechanics, how to actually map out a skill, practice in a way that makes it stick, and build these little feedback loops that will slash your learning time. All right, first up, the biggest secret to learning something fast isn't about magically finding more time in your day. It's about realizing that most of what we call practice is just wasted time. The key isn't more hours, it's a whole lot more strategy in the hours you actually have. This right here, this illustrates what the source material calls the efficiency gap. Just think about it for a second. How many of us took 4 years of Spanish in high school and still can't hold a basic conversation? But then you hear about someone who spends a few weeks fully immersed in Mexico and comes back conversational. That massive gap between the efforts you put in and the results you get, that's the gap this system is designed to close.
So the very first step to closing that gap is getting crystal clear on your purpose. Before you even start, you've got to answer these 3 questions. What exactly do you want to learn? Why do you want to learn it? And this one is crucial. How good do you actually want to be? Defining that target from the very beginning changes everything. Are you trying to become fluent enough to debate politics, or do you just want to know enough to order a coffee on vacation? Knowing the finish line before the race starts is the whole game. Okay, so once you have your target, you need to understand the road to get there. And here's a little secret. Progress is not a straight line. Nope, it has a very specific shape. And knowing what that shape looks like is the key to not giving up when things feel painfully slow at the beginning. This is it, the S-shaped learning curve. And it's such a powerful way to think about how we learn. See how it starts out really slow and flat? That can be super discouraging. But then it hits what's called an inflection point, and suddenly your progress just skyrockets. Our entire goal here is to get to that rapid growth phase as fast as humanly possible. Now, this is probably the most important part of the whole journey, that initial struggle. Phase 1. The source calls it the great filter. It feels like you're spinning your wheels and going nowhere. And honestly, this is where most people quit. They just give up. The entire point of our 24-hour system is to blast through this frustrating phase and hit that inflection point where learning suddenly feels almost effortless and your skills start growing exponentially. So how do you actually push through to that amazing growth phase? Simple. You concentrate your practice. Just look at these 2 scenarios. Who do you think gets better at, say, playing guitar? The person who noodles around for 24 hours spread across a whole year, or the person who packs those same 24 hours into 10 focused days? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Concentrated sessions, like 90 minutes a day, send a powerful signal to your brain that this skill matters, and that's what helps you hit that inflection point so much faster.
I just want you to look at this number for a second. 1,000. What in the world could this represent?
It represents the incredible power of focusing only on what's most important. In Spanish, for example, if you just learn the 1,000 most common words, you can suddenly understand 85% of everyday conversation. That's insane! You don't need to know 10,000 words to be conversational. This is the absolute essence of strategic learning. It's not about mastering the entire dictionary, it's about mastering the words that give you the biggest bang for your buck.
So if learning just 1,000 words can get you 85% of the way in Spanish, the next question is pretty obvious, right? How do you find the 1,000 words for any skill? Well, that's where deconstruction comes in. It's all about mapping out the entire skill so you can spot the shortcuts.
The source material gives this perfect example of what not to do. It talks about a guy who wants to learn Spanish to meet women, but instead of working on things like, general confidence or basic conversation skills, he obsesses over memorizing a few cheesy pickup lines in Spanish. He's focusing all his energy on the lowest yield, most niche part of the skill. And we all do this kind of thing without even realizing it.
So here's the game plan. The first 2 hours of your 24-hour journey, they're not for practice. They're for research. Your job is to map out all the little component parts of the skill. Think of it like a skill tree. Then you identify the 3 subskills that will give you the absolute biggest return on your time investment.
Then you just focus on mastering those one at a time.
All right, so you've mapped out the skill, you've found the most important parts to focus on, but how you actually practice them is what separates the people who learn fast from the people who just dabble forever. And that brings us to the engine of this whole system, deliberate practice.
We have all been here. We've all hit the OK plateau. It's that point where you're just good enough at something, so you stop getting any better. Think about typing. Most of us have been typing for thousands of hours, but we're not expert typists, are we? We're stuck on that plateau because we're just going through the motions. We're not actively trying to improve.
And the solution is captured perfectly in this quote. If your practice feels easy and comfortable, you're not actually growing. That discomfort, that little bit of frustration when you're trying something new, that is the physical sensation of your brain literally forging new connections. It's just like getting sore at the gym. It's not a bad sign. It's a sign that you're getting stronger.
A really great practical way to think about this is the 40-20 rule. So for every hour you practice, spend the first 20 minutes just warming up, reviewing the fundamentals you're already comfortable with. But for the next 40 minutes, you have to be pushing yourself, tackling challenges that are just a little bit beyond your current comfort zone. This makes sure that every single session actually leads to real growth.
But look, deliberate practice is only half of the equation. Pushing yourself is great, but if you're pushing yourself in the wrong direction, you're just getting really good at making the same mistakes over and over. And that's why the final piece of this whole system is building a rapid feedback loop.
Think about studying for a big test. The wrong way to do it is to answer 50 practice questions and then check all your answers at the end. The right way? Do one single question and then immediately stop and review your thought process for that one question. It's not about whether you got the answer right or wrong. It's about correcting your thinking in real time.
That's the feedback loop. It's the time between when you do something and when you find out how you did. Your goal is to shrink that time down to almost nothing. So if you're learning to shoot baskets, don't practice with one ball where you have to chase it down after every shot. Have a whole basket of balls right next to you so you can take a shot, see what happened, and adjust your next one instantly.
And this leads to a really important shift in your mindset. You have to stop thinking of practice as a performance. It's not. Instead, you need to see it as a series of small, low-stakes experiments. Think like an inventor. You're not failing, you're just finding thousands of ways that don't work. The faster you can run these little experiments and get that instant feedback, the faster you'll find the thing that does.
And there you have it. That's the whole blueprint. Spend your first 2 hours just researching and mapping the skill. Then, identify the 3 most important subskills to focus on. Practice those skills deliberately, in concentrated bursts, using that 40-20 rule. And finally, build the fastest feedback loops you possibly can so you can correct your course in real time.
And that's the entire system. You now have the tools to learn literally anything, from a language, to an instrument, to a piece of software, way faster than you ever thought possible. So, the only question left is, what will you choose?